We've all got a favourite when it comes to cars, but whether or not people agree depends on their own car collection. And we've got some fairly canny collectors on this show. We've also got an expert panel of judges who are ready to pull apart the owner's argument that their car is better than the competition. We'll meet them in a minute, but first it's time to meet the owner of this car, who believes it's most definitely the dog's.
Hi, I'm Douglas, and this is my '67 Mustang. It was built on the 16th of February 1967 in California, where it spent all its life prior to it coming to England 4 years ago. It's a 289 cubic inch small block V8, which is just under 5 litres. I think I reached a stage in my life where this is what I wanted to be driving. This is what I really fancied. You've got to really fancy a car. You've got to really like the way it looks. The Mustang was made from 1964 to the present day. But this particular shape was only made for 2 years, 67, 68, and I just love that shape. This car's got a really beautiful arse. I think it's like driving a modern car, but one of my friends said to me, what would you know, you've never had a modern car. But it's got power steering, power brakes, 2-speed wipers. It's just a really easy car to drive. It's very enjoyable.
And here is Douglas Ingram with his pride and joy, his 1967 Ford Mustang Fastback. Welcome to the show, Douglas.
Thank you, Penny.
Now, here to debate whether or not this car is the dog's is our expert panel, and it's their job to pick out all the good points and the bad points of this car in order to find our top dog of the day. So I'm going to introduce the panel to you. Our first panellist is Richard Rouse. He's a sports car enthusiast from Reading. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Our second panellist is Doug Hill. He's a chief engineer here at the Motor Museum. And our third panellist is John Cook, or Cookie as he's known. He's the organiser of kit car shows and general petrol head, it says here. So welcome all to the show.
Hi.
Now, I'm going to start with you, Richard. The Ford Mustang, beautiful looking car. Your first impressions and your thoughts of it?
Well, I mean, for iconic American muscle cars, you don't really have to go any further than the Mustang. I mean, this is the muscle car that started it all. And obviously there's the appearance in Bullet that, you know, everyone remembers, I think. And it is a fantastic looking car. If I was in a position where I could afford to run this sort of car and afford to put the petrol in, then, you know, I'd have one on my driveway.
So your kind of car, your kind of style?
Yeah. Sounds great, looks great. It's a lovely car.
Doug, is it your kind of car?
Yet to be convinced. I mean, it's a great muscle car, wonderful noise, you know, 220 brake horsepower, 4.8 litre V8, all the things, you know, well, really makes your blood run really hot. It's great. But I don't know if I could live with one.
Yeah. Now, what about you, Cookie? How do you feel?
I've always loved the Mustang, and I must confess, hands up, I love American cars. They're my favourites, so I'm biased to start with. But people probably don't realise that the Mustang, when it was brought out in '64, was a cooking car. It was an everyday car. It was 100 brake horsepower, straight six. 2 million were sold in the first 2 years. This come along, '87 Fastback, 289, smashing V8 engine. I mean, it's brilliant, isn't it?
It's a cracking, really beautiful looking car. Now, more from our panel again in a moment, plus a chance for Douglas to have his say about why he thinks his car is top dog. You can add your comments about this Mustang or any of the cars featured in the series by logging onto our website at menandmotors.co.uk. Tell us what cars you think should be on the show, and maybe you've got an iconic car yourself and you think that we should see it. If you have, let us know by logging on. Now, back to the debate. And Richard, I'm keen to know what you think of the performance of this car and what it's like to actually drive, to sit in and be in.
Well, it's a very evocative car to sit in, I think. I have to say, if it was my money, it would have to be a drop top. I think, you know, if you got the choice. So there's maybe a little bit too much metal up top for my liking. But there are some great touches. I love the original stereo in here. It's just little things like that that really bring out the interior. So it's a fun place to be. It's obviously of an era, but it's, you know, it gives you a real feel for that you're sitting in a special car. There's
an awful lot of detail in these old cars you would never get in a modern car, and we were talking earlier about how soulless modern cars can be, and just the smell inside this car is like going back in time. It's so evocative, isn't it? Would you agree, Douglas?
Yeah, I mean, as soon as you step in an older car, you're living the history and it's there in front of you. But American cars, American switchgear, not quite as tactile as British cars. You know, I'm I don't like the switches and bits and pieces. Plus, you know, how do you call it? Stick shift. I'm a stick shift guy, not an auto guy. But yeah, great to sit in and great to feel the ambience of the whole car.
Do you like the interior of the car, Cookie?
Yes, I like smoking the wheels as well. With a big 289 engine like this thing, you know, it's they're great in a straight line. I'm not sure about them in the UK on the little lanes and that, you know. I mean,
Yeah, tell us, Douglas, how does it handle on English roads?
It handles pretty well because I've stiffened up the suspension on it, so it's got all new shocks and springs, and I've lowered it about an inch in it, and it handles remarkably well.
You were saying he's actually taken this car back to metal and rebuilt the whole thing, so you know your way around this car, and parts aren't that hard to find, you say?
No, virtually everything is available. And you get a colour catalogue. It's like a magazine. You just go through and you pick everything you want. It's so simple. Almost everything is available.
OK, sounds good. Now, the final part of our debate about whether or not Douglas's Mustang is the dogs or not a little bit later. But first of all, we sent out our cameras with Douglas and with his Mustang to see how it looked in action. Well, the Mustang certainly looked good in action, and I know you enjoyed yourself, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, I had a fantastic time. In fact, I've got another one at home which I'm thinking of converting into a track car.
Oh, crikey. And I did hear, a little birdie told me you went off when the cameras weren't watching, so we didn't see it on the film, but maybe overcooked it slightly.
I did, a bit of off-roading on the chicane.
Is there enough traction? Why did you go off?
It's a big old car, isn't it? It's designed by our wonderful American friends to go in a straight line. I mean, they don't have roundabouts in America. So, you know, does it handle? By European standards, probably not. But by American standards, it probably... This is why it's got its reputation as being such a superb car.
But it's not designed as a sports car, is it really? It's designed... I mean, the thing about this is cruising. It's not there. You know, I think it was a pleasant surprise to see how well it handled on the track. And, you know, only one off is probably better than we'd maybe expect with the reputation of American cars. But what it's all about, it's about cruising, it's about torque, low-down grunt. You know, you've got the traditional leaf springs and stuff are not there for good handling. So if it handles, I think it's a bonus.
This thing was built for the average American family. I mean, 2 million of them were sold to Joe Public. They weren't bought by car enthusiasts.
Are we trying to create something that it wasn't then?
Well, is
this a family
an
car
image, isn't it?
that's turned into this mega muscle car, and it never was?
Well, it wasn't built to be a sports car, was it? It was built to look like a sports car, but be usable as a family car, and then the engine size starts increasing.
So Mr. Shelby comes along, and Mr. Shelby puts a whopping great big engine in, and suddenly we've got...
But you can do that with any car, but then that car doesn't become iconic, where it's happened to the Mustang, and I don't understand why.
OK, I'm going to stop you there because the time for talking is over, I'm afraid, and it's time to face the facts. 4.8-litre V8 engine, 220 brake horsepower, 0 to 60 in 7.3 seconds, and a top speed of 124 miles an hour. An estimated value of between 11 and 18,000, including shipping costs. So, Douglas, here's your last chance to impress that panel with your plea as to why your Ford Mustang Fastback should be today's top dog.
Well, my little car's beautiful. When I drive down the street, it makes people smile. It's a smiles per gallon car, and it's not too big an engine. It's relatively economical. The spares are relatively easy to get. In fact, very easy to get, most of them. It's absolutely beautiful. I love it. It's got a fold-down rear seat, which means you can put lots of stuff in the back if you need to. It's very practical. It's got dual-circuit brakes, power steering, power brakes, and front rear seat belts, 2-speed wipers. It's like driving a modern car, but it looks so much nicer than any modern car.
It's a strong plea. Panel, it's now down to you. I want to know if you can just summarise what you think this car's top dog potential is, and I'll start with you, Richard.
Well, I think, as I said before, it's a Mustang, and that's a great start in itself. And it's got the looks, it's got the sounds, it's got the performance. So I think it's off to a great start.
Doug?
I'm not a great lover of American motor cars, but I'm slowly warming to this, and the more I hear about it and some of the fixtures and fittings that it's got, Yeah, I'm just maybe tipping the scale there. I don't know yet.
OK, interesting. Cookie?
Well, these things were built to last, like all American cars. They're solid. There's great big lumps of iron in them, you know. And this thing will probably be going for the next 20, 30, 40 years, especially the way it's been looked
It's
after
been looked
by Doug
after
at
so
the
well.
moment, yeah. So, I mean, again, I'm an American lover. It's a business, isn't it? You know?
OK, panel, thank you. But will they change their minds, I wonder, when they've met Phil and his Ford Capri Mark I, because he believes that his car is top dog.
Although the Ford Mustang is a beautiful car, at the end of the day, the Mark I Capri has to be the top dog.
Which car gets christened the dogs? Find out when we come back.